Can stress actually supercharge your business's growth? What if your team's biggest stressors were actually the greatest opportunities for growth? On this episode of Profit with a Plan, we're going to discover how embracing positive stress and strategically building your team's capacity can transform overwhelm into unstoppable momentum. And we're going to be breaking down why putting people over projections unlocks growth more than spreadsheets ever could, how to fire yourself from the day-to-day tasks, and how to empower team-driven innovation, and exactly what it takes to bulletproof your team against burnout during rapid growth. So if you're ready to stop the fearing the stress and start leveraging it for massive business breakthroughs, this episode is a must listen for you. Hey, entrepreneurs, are you working too hard for too little profit? Well, welcome to Profit with a Plan podcast, where we help you scale smarter, increase profitability, and build a business that's worth more, whether you keep it or you sell it. I'm Marcia, Riner, business growth strategist and the profit booster behind Infinite Profit. I've helped countless entrepreneurs to turn their businesses into highly profitable and sale-ready assets, so they enjoy more income now and a bigger payout later on. So join me for practical strategies, expert insights, and proven steps to make your business more profitable, more valuable, and built to last. Today's episode is sponsored by Infinite Profit, where we don't just talk profit, we deliver it. And before we get going, I've got something special for you. And if you're ever feeling like you're doing more and doing everything right, but you're just not seeing the results that you might want, it might be time for a fresh perspective. And that's why we're offering a free growth and marketing audit. And in just one powerful session, we'll uncover opportunities to drive real growth for your business. And if you're ready to make impact, visit profitbooster.biz and let's get started. All right, let's jump into today's episode. Our guest today is Steve Perry, a bold and encouraging and generous leader dedicated to helping fund billions for God's kingdom and inspiring radically generous lives. From launching his first business at 15 to serving as a record-breaking managing partner for a Fortune 100 financial services firm, Steve's journey has been defined by resilience, faith, and the proven ability to drive growth. In 2023, he founded the Well Recruiting Solutions and partnering with organizations across diverse industries to build high-performing teams and robust talent pipelines. Drawing on 2 decades of leadership and recruitment experience, Steve now focuses on empowering leaders, fostering sustainable growth, and creating lasting impact, one strategic hire at a time. Steve, welcome to Profit with a Plan. I'm excited to have you on today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Marcia.
Yeah, this is great. So I love the concept that we kind of talked about beforehand, which is this positive stress.
Mm.
But before we get into positive stress and really building for capacity, you gave us a little bit of a hint that you started when you were 15 and you did all this stuff, but you're pretty young. How did you get going into this and really turning it on the way you did?
Yeah. Well, I would say a lot of it had to do with my parents. So my mom and dad, they made the commitment. My dad was going to work, and my mom was going to stay home and spent a lot of time raising me and my younger sister. My dad went to the Naval Academy and got out after his 4 years, and so he always just kind of didn't want to lead a lot of people. So he stayed like mid-level in his career. But the biggest priority they had was sending my sister and I to the nicest, best private Christian school in town.
Mm. Which
That's
came
not
at a
cheap.
hefty price tag, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's not cheap. Like literally, I think it was a third of their income that they
Oh my
spent
goodness.
sending us there. And so it really created this unique experience of two things. Like, we lived across the street from the nice neighborhood, and all of my friends lived in the nice neighborhood, and they had all of the things that they wanted on all the sports teams and all that. And my family, we just couldn't afford it. And so if I wanted to have like new clothes for school, if I wanted to have a new backpack, if I wanted to be on the sports team and pay the fee, have the basketball shoes, any of that stuff, I had to pay for it.
Wow.
And so, my first job was commercial salmon fishing, which was great. I worked 140 hours a week on, like, the math doesn't even make sense. We were just like around the clock for a month straight. And I got to the end of that season and I made like 3 grand. So for a 14-year-old kid, that was pretty good.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh.
but I could do math. And I'm like, we caught this much salmon every day, and the price was this, and do. The owner made a lot of money. I think I want to be the owner. And so with my parents' support, like they didn't have money to help me do anything, but they could support and encourage and give me wisdom and let me use their
Mm,
minivan to drive up and down the neighborhood, and all the things that I needed to build a successful. It was an asphalt maintenance, a seal coating company, and so that was really what spawned it, and then they supported it.
wow. It's amazing what a family and that kind of environment can create, right? And it doesn't always, and I love this that it doesn't always take money, but it takes the right ideas and encouragement to get you to where you need to go. I know that that's a common business philosophy that you have to throw money at a problem and you have to solve it. It takes money to make money. It always has that, but you just proved us wrong. So I love it. That's great. Well, great story. Okay. So now that you've had this success of, starting out and salmon fishing and asphalt, repair and crazy things on the way, you're bringing that kind of drive to the business world. And I think one of the things that I got out of that story was that you were able to take a stressful environment, even loving family and this, but you were able to take that stressful environment and make it work for you. How'd you do that?
Yeah. Well, I would say a couple things. You're kind of alluding to, my book, The Capacity Model, and really we could break a lot of that down. But I always like to quote, like, beginning with the end in mind. So I've always been very goal oriented. And so, that business was a means to an end, right? A means to, perhaps not look silly because I was the only one on the basketball team that didn't have the matching team shoes. Uh,
Oh,
or knowing that, I was probably going to want to go to college after high school, and all my friends were, and my family wasn't going to be able to pay for that. So I had to figure out a way to pay for school. And so that was the necessity of figuring that out. And then as soon as I got into college, I realized, I don't really want to be here very long. So I had to figure out a way to get through it as quickly as possible and inexpensively. So it was always like beginning with the end in mind. My first real career, Marcia, was in the financial services industry, which I know you've spent a good amount of your career doing. And that was really birthed from the seal coating company, the asphalt maintenance company. Like, I lived in Alaska. That was 2.5 month long season. You worked your butt off. But the only reason people live in Alaska is for the amazing summer. Well, all summer long, I was slopping black tar all over people's driveways and parking lots. And so I knew long term, out of college, I didn't want that lifestyle. I wanted to have a family. And so I had to figure out some kind of business model where I would be able to be there for a family. The other thing was that everyone in that industry in the wintertime, they plowed snow. And plowing
you
snow,
never had a vacation, right?
no,
You were
never.
either plowing snow or sealing asphalt.
Yeah. So beginning with the end in mind, I knew I needed something entrepreneurial, and I needed to do something that would allow me to have the family life that I wanted to.
Love it. Okay, so you talked about your book, Building Capacity. Tell me a little bit more of the framework that you used when you were thinking this book through.
Yeah. So the oxymoronic, the ironic opening of the book is that stress is a gift, which you talked about, good stress, right? Now, I say that stress is a gift because that's life telling you that it's time to grow. You've reached your
Mm.
capacity, you've reached your limit. Now, you don't tell that person, in the middle of the stress that it's a gift, right?
Of course not. They can't see, right?
Right, totally. You prep them beforehand, and then, after they've managed it for a minute, then you bring it up. But it's a gift because life's saying, hey, you know what? You got to make some moves here. And in the book, I talk about, you kind of have two options when you experience stress. You either have a breakdown,
Mm.
which all of us do, right? I don't want to make it this big dramatic thing, right? Stress can be little, stress can be big, but there's 3 stages of breakdown. The first stage is disappointment. So I use this a lot in recruiting when we were or I'm sorry, in sales management for people that we had recruited, brought into the financial services industry. They would get frustrated. I haven't made any money. I'm stressed
Mm.
out. And they get disappointed. They'd be like, "Hey, Steve, you told me I would make all this money, or that it would be this amazing career and we would have all this autonomy and I could do whatever I want. That's not happening. I'm disappointed," right? Step one. Step two,
Well, first of all,
yeah,
that's a very common pitch in the insurance space is that
totally.
you're going to make all this money and you're going to have all this freedom and it's
Yep.
all on you. And it takes a while. The caveat of it takes work and it takes time, that is always missed somewhere along
Always,
the line.
always missed. And like, the gap in there, right? And
Yeah.
so it's a constant reminder. But yeah, so disappointment happens a lot. And then
Yeah.
if you sit in that for too long, then you become disillusioned. You're like, well, you know what? Actually, Steve lied to me. Like, no one's ever made money in this business. No one has, like, there's like, it's not possible to be successful. I cannot believe he pulled the wool over my eyes on this
Oh,
situation. That's step two. And then if they sit in it for too long, then they move to the last step, which I call greener pastures, it's a viable solution, but that's quitting and moving on and doing something else, which is fine, right? And I saw this a lot, right? They would leave and they would go work for another company.
I have to say though, that scenario of your step one or phase one, two, and three is very, very common. I mean, that's how most people handle stress, right?
Mhm.
They're not looking at it as an opportunity. They're looking at it as, well, that's Steve, man. He sold me a line here and I followed it. Stupid me. Let me go do some.
Totally. It,
That's
it,
terrible
it,
environment to be in.
it is, and even the problem is like the greener pastures. Like it feels good for a season. You're like, oh, I got a new job, new learning, and the reason is you reinserted yourself into an environment under your capacity. You know how to
Mhm.
start. You know how to do the first. You know how to get an email address and show up at work and do those things. But sooner or later, the same things that caused you stress over here before, they're going to cause you stress again because you never gained any capacity.
Okay. So what's the alternative
Yeah.
if we're not in those three phases? Is
Yeah.
there a way to get out of those three phases?
There is. And that's instead of choosing the breakdown cycle, it's having a breakthrough. So,
Mm.
so that's in the book where I talk about what is our capacity made on. It's or made out of. It's three different pillars. So the pillars are our education or our learning, our habits, and our relationships.
Hmm.
So each one of those pillars, if you think of it like holding up a roof or a ceiling, a capacity ceiling, the more you've done, Marcia, to develop each of those pillars, the higher your capacity ceiling is. So you're stressed out. I'm not making any money. We look at it and say, okay, instead of feeling sorry for ourselves, we need to have a breakthrough. So we need to look and see, do I need to improve my education? Do I need to learn more of how to make money in business? Do I need to improve my habits, which by the way is typically the answer in that scenario to raise
Yeah.
the ceiling there? Or do I need some new relationships? That could be too. I might need a mentor, I might need a coach. I might need a center of influence who's going to refer new clients to me, but all of those things could grow your capacity. And then now you're having a breakthrough. Now you have more capacity and you're not stressed out.
I love it. So let me ask you a valid question though.
Yeah.
When you're in what is the first one? The despair, right?
Yep. You're disappointed.
Disappointed. Okay. When
Yep.
you're sitting there and you're disappointed and
Yep.
you're sitting there trying to figure this out, how do you get that mind shift to go, oh, I should be looking at this a different way when you're already depressed and
No.
sad and sitting there wallowing in your own misery? How do you get that shift to start going, I'm smart. I need to learn a new skill or do more tasks or find somebody to help me.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be
Uh,
that
right.
would be the logical response. However, emotions get in the way all the time. So
Mhm.
how do they do that? How do they do that shift and go on to the breakthrough side?
So there's a few ways that come to mind, right? So, obviously you would read the book beforehand and be prepared with those tools, but what you need is external input. And so external input could be the book.
Exactly.
It's probably
You
a
become the
person.
mentor, right? You become the guide that somebody's looking for to get out of that hole that they're in because they do. They feel like it's this heavy weight and I'm in a deep hole and if I just keep digging, I'm only going down.
You mentioned it earlier, right? You talked about how you help business owners that feel stuck. They're not getting the profit that they thought that they were going to get. And you're like, we can sit down for one session and I will give you an external viewpoint that maybe you didn't consider. Well, by the way, that's a pillar, that's a relationship, right? So that relationship with Marcia could help raise that capacity ceiling. Marcia is probably going to give you some habits that you need to implement and maybe say, hey, did you know this about that? And that's a little bit of education. All of those things raise your capacity ceiling.
I did it subconsciously. Love it, love it. Okay, so in reality, if they are prepared for this in advance, right? Everybody's going to go through this kind of setback, we'll call
Yep.
it, or a position of despair and sadness and going through their challenges that they haven't been able to break through yet. Everybody goes through this. So it sounds logical to me, like you said, to prepare yourself, read a book, get some education on how to anticipate this,
Mm-hmm.
and then go, oh, I read about this. I know what's going to happen. Now I go left instead of right. Are your podcast guest appearances leading to real business, or are you just hoping that listeners will take action? With the Profit Booster Podcast Monetization Hub, we turn your interviews into lead generating machines so that you capture, nurture, and convert listeners into paying clients. So stop leaving money on the table and get started today at profitboosterpod.com. Is it really that simple?
I, I got to tell you though, like it is, but not for anybody. Like no, everyone gets to a level because when we are experiencing stress, we're in fight or flight, and so
Right.
putting things in place, some of the capacity building is putting things in place so that you can come back to capacity building when you know that you need it. So again, I come back to the coach. A spouse, right? Like this applies across the board. The example I actually use a lot is marriage, right?
Mm.
Disappointed in your marriage, then you become disillusioned. It's never going to get better. This person, I can't believe they put the toilet paper backwards on, or they don't like, and then you're like, man, I'm just going to get a divorce. And that's going to be better. It's the same thing. You're in your pastures and then you get married again, you got the same problem. So it applies everywhere.
Mm.
Having a relationship with people, with different people, right? In business context and personal context and parenting and marriage, having people that you trust and being able to say, hey, what's your outside perspective on this? And if you guys both align under the capacity model for it, like that's a phenomenal way to make sure that you're constantly growing your capacity and being able to conquer that stress.
I love that. Having those, we all have friends that lift us up, right? We all have people that mentors that we look to. We have, we have our faith, we have our leaders that we look to that can help get us on the right path. But I think the awareness is probably the most important factor, and along with the preparedness,
Mm-hmm.
that if you anticipate this, and it's like, what do they say, death and taxes,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
they're there,
Yeah.
you're going to have them.
Yeah.
But if you can anticipate them, then you can do things to improve the longevity and the quality of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You can do things to reduce the tax load that you pay, or invest in different ways so that you can pay it later, or however. I mean, this is very reasonable, and oftentimes, and forgive me, a lot of times it's right in front of your face, but your eyes aren't open enough to see it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of stuff is brilliant. It's brilliant that everybody should be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so glad you brought this to our attention. All right. When we're looking at getting out of the fight or flight, and we're in that mentor, we're talking to them, they've gave us some good behaviors. How often are we hitting like different ceilings?
Yeah. And to your point there, right? Like I've in offices, organizations I've led before, we kind of like the mantra of stress is a gift. It's easy to kind of say that. It's purposefully shocking.
Yes.
And it's an easy thing to say, almost jokingly. So when someone is in flight or fight, you could say, hey, Marcia, stress is a gift. And knowing that you're like, I don't want to hear that, but okay, that brings me back to, okay,
Hmm.
if stress is a gift. So that's an easy one. Um, I would say though, it really depends on how much you want to grow, because you can look at, this can be a once a month exercise. It can be a couple times a day
Oh,
exercise,
wow.
depending
Okay.
on how in tune you want to be with what are the things that are stressing me out. And I would, you will be exhausted if you're looking at it a couple times a day, right? But there's seasons for that, right?
Hmm.
So, in my business right now, we've made a crucial shift from an initial type of model where we were doing a certain type of recruiting, and now we've shifted completely to a new model and new revenue model, new ideal client profile.
Wow.
So
That's a significant
it's
shift.
a huge shift, and we unfortunately, I didn't recognize that was going to cause us some turnover on our team. Uh,
Mm,
Great people that we hired to do a certain role, that role doesn't exist anymore, and so now we need people to do this, and they didn't want to do that, and
mm.
I don't blame them, but when that happens, that causes stress, and so I got to
Well, I
look.
think change causes stress too. I mean,
Totally.
even, oh, we're going to try this method instead of that method. And people tend to change is very uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Mhm.
Um, so how did you encourage the remainder of your team to embrace this stress and this challenge and look at the positive side of it?
Yeah. So the pivot was required. Like for us to stay in business, right? We tried for a year to
Innovation is definitely required.
we had to, right? It was everyone's getting paid except for the owner, and the owner is only willing to work for free for so long.
There's a problem.
So if we all want to keep working at this, we have to make this pivot. And based on everything that we've done, this pivot is significantly more profitable. And so
Mm,
with that means like everyone is going to have the opportunity to substantially increase their income. And I know not everyone is motivated by income, but it's probably why most of us have to work. And so putting it in that way and showing them, here's what the future looks like. Here's how um, here's what happens when we're successful. Here's how we're able, the mission we're all aligned under, bringing talent to organizations that they need to grow. Like that's going to happen at a higher scale because we're making this shift.
I like it. So you took the leadership approach and said, "Hey, here's the state of the union," right? And you gave them the honest conversation and said, "Here's what the future looks like. Are you guys on board?" Right? And then knowing that there's going to be some challenges along the way, we have tools and mentors and learning opportunities for you to improve your own skill set and making you a better employee along the way too. So it sounded to me like a win-win. And I'm sorry some of the team members couldn't grasp onto that, but it
Yep.
happens, and sometimes this happens for the better. But I love the idea. So many companies can't handle that. I've got a client right now that is doing some significant changes, and the team is just fighting on every step of the way.
Mhm.
And I would love to share that idea with them and saying, hey, stress is positive, and if you look at it this way and you learn a new skill, you're going to have a better opportunity,
Yeah,
right?
totally. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Mm, good stuff. Okay. So when we hit these, and it's an ongoing, everlasting task that we need to look at.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you made a point that I thought was really, really important, that this kind of stress is in our personal life as well as our business life, even though this is a business podcast.
Yeah.
And I think about our kids going through life right now, right? And they're feeling our stress, and they're feeling, the weight of the world that tends to drop on them, their friends, oh, I don't like you today. I liked you yesterday, but I don't like you today.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff that they could use this skill, right?
Yeah. 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 And that's, in the book I talk, one of my opening chapters actually talks about four truths, which are different things that, like, if we're going to go through this journey together of learning how to unpack the capacity model, there's a few assumptions. And one of those is that we are a whole person. So our personal life and our professional life are intertwined. So
Mm,
if we have stress in our personal life, from our marriage, from our kids, from our health, from anything, that is going to carry over and cause stress in our professional life, and vice versa. If we're not hitting our numbers, if our clients aren't happy, if we got a huge tax bill coming up that we don't have the money for, like what a turnover in your employee, we can't hire the right talent, all of that is going to bleed over into our personal life. And so to separate the two, and how much the corporate environment wants us to separate those two, you could do that, but that's going to cause stress. That's going to come at a cost, because they are not inseparable.
Golly, isn't that the truth, right? Holy cow. Okay, so that's the first tenet, right? What's the
Yep.
second?
You're gonna test me, right? I wrote the book 5 years ago.
Ah,
Okay. The second one is that whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right, which is
love it.
a Henry Ford quote, or take on that. But like, you have to believe I can make these capacity improving changes.
I
Another
like that because you have to, a lot of people talk about stepping into the future you, right? Future casting. And if you want to be a millionaire, you got to act and walk and talk like you're already a millionaire. You
Right.
don't have to spend like you're a millionaire, but you have to feel it and really embrace that. So I think that that's a really great truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like, I've seen so many people that just like give up, and it's like, well, then
Right.
of course it's not going to happen. Um,
Because you said it wasn't going to happen.
because you said it wasn't going to happen. You decided it wasn't going to happen. One of the other truths we talk about, and this one, this is the one that gets people like, oh, great, that's not very positive.
Uh-oh.
Is that life is hard, or life is hard. And so what I mean by that, and you get it, but it's
Yep.
like, if your life is stressful and chaotic, like, that sucks, and that's hard life. Being extremely disciplined and growing your capacity on a regular basis, that's also hard too, but one comes with rewards, the other one comes with consistent stress.
Ooh, that was really, really good. That was really good because one does come with rewards, and it's such a these are like, yeah, moments, but they're eye-opening because they're true. As you said, the four truths.
Truth. Or
It is really true that, if, and I use this, I use the term in business. Yeah, business is hard, but if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And, if you've got this mindset problem, you probably shouldn't be in business in the first place. But at the same time, everything's hard. Everything takes work.
Mhm.
There's very few of us, not including me, that can sit there with their hand out and say, I'm a trust fund baby and I came from extreme amount of wealth and I don't have to work. I just have to look good every morning when I get up.
Oh,
That's not going to happen for the majority of us out there. So you're going to have to do something to make whatever you want happen.
yeah. No, totally. And
Mm.
that's an interesting point on that. This is not the point of the conversation. I actually someone had an Instagram channel where they were a trust fund beneficiary, and they were seriously bemoaning the challenges in life with that, which is kind of like, oh my gosh, tongue in cheek. And the majority of people like would not understand that. But I want to take their side for a minute here.
They have responsibilities.
They have responsibilities, but like, have you ever, I know you have you ever gotten to that point in life where like you've just won and won and won and won, and like it's going really good? And I know I have, and not a lot, but I've been there, and I'm like, is this it? And that's actually why I wrote this book. It was in a season after winning a lot, and I'm like, all right, I need a new challenge. And so to that point, that trust, like there's a challenge of purpose. There's a challenge of meaningfulness, because the vast majority of people in America, whether they like to admit it or not, define their worth and their success on if they can make enough money to provide for their family.
Mm, yeah.
And they're winning because they're not, very, 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 very few in America. People in America are dying because they don't have shelter and food and clothing, right? And so they're winning in that sense. This person over here who has this, they have to figure out a new sense of identity that has nothing to do with money.
Mm.
They got to do some deep work, and nobody understands it because most of them look at it and they're like, You got
Are
everything.
you out of your mind? You've got everything.
You
What
got
more
everything.
can you ask for, right? That's crazy.
So to your point in that, I've actually thought about that before, and it's like, life is hard or life is hard. It's a different way, but even everyone, this is universal. It applies to everybody.
I love it. Ah, this is so good. This is so good. Okay, can you remember the fourth
I
one?
got the last one. I got the
Okay,
last,
cool.
and I purposely have this as the last one because I hit him with life is hard or life is hard, which is like, ugh. Um,
Right?
the answer though to going through this process of building capacity, doing more does not mean working more hours. So I assume that you are allocating all 168 hours of your life this week. You don't have any more hours to give. And
Yeah, what's
actually,
110%? You only
yeah,
have
right. Like
100%.
there's no 180 hours to give in a week. So you can't do more. You have to do differently. You can't
Mm,
more hours. Like just dumping more hours into it. I frankly think that's cheating. Like anyone who works 100 hours a week, like I get it. There's seasons for that. But if that's the answer always, that's cheating. And so
yes.
we need to figure out a way through building capacity, habits, relationships, education. How do we do more of the right things? I talk about Pareto principle, but I actually do a 2x on the Pareto principle. Um,
Nice.
and say that 1% of your activities will give you 50% of the results. And so let's find those things that move the needle that much and not spend more hours getting better.
Wow. Well done. I'm so sad you wrote that 5 years ago. Pull that book out and reread it again because this is incredible information that really, I think, especially in today's time, right? Markets are up and down, economy's kind of crazy. We've got a lot of stresses going on in the world that affect our business and our family life. And if one's not working, the other might not be working, and everybody is feeling this.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you were able to come on and share something, even if it was 5 years ago, that is going to be it needed to be heard today.
Oh, thank you.
So
Thank you. My
thank you
pleasure.
so much for
Yeah.
coming on today. But Steve, where can listeners find out more about you and your ideas and your recruiting and the way that you can just bust through capacity?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn all day. I do a lot of LinkedIn for business and then just like this stuff. So my content, I own a recruiting company. I'm really passionate about helping people grow and scale their business by getting the right talent in there. So I really take that consultative approach. I'm in the middle of building a business that we've grown to over 30 people in the last year and a half. So I'm in there with my clients. I'm excited about it. I just think we have a really good process for getting the right people in there. So I'm on LinkedIn a lot talking about that and quite frankly, a lot about the capacity model still. And then something fun that we have is, no one likes boring interviews. And so I created a list of 10 amazing, fun interview questions that people can ask to make sure that they get the right hire every
Nice.
time. And so
Nice.
that's downloadable at hirethewell.com. And so you can just download it there and that'll link you to our website if you want to learn more about our company.
I love it. It's a two for one, right? You get these great ideas, you get this great way of handling and you can grow from both, right? I've always said that you can't grow a business with one person.
Mm,
You cannot, you are on an island. There's just, you hit a capacity of being, like you mentioned, there's only 24 hours in a day, right? 7 days a week. You can't do
yeah,
any more. You
yeah,
need to sleep.
yeah,
So how do you expand your company? How do you scale and grow? Is you have to bring on your number one asset, which is your employees,
yeah,
to help you achieve the direction that you wanted to go in. And when you do that, then you're able to multiply and scale as you've said, and having this, the challenges and stresses that you face, hire early is a great is a great lesson to learn. So I'm glad we had you on for this.
thank
So
you.
this is wonderful. All right, listeners, thanks for tuning in today. I hope you picked up some valuable insight and actionable ideas that will help your business become more profitable. Being able to handle stress and bust through those growth ceilings and the things that are holding you back, and then even to consider how to hire better with these 10 questions. This has been a wealth of information that Steve has brought on today. So as I mentioned earlier, it might be time for a fresh perspective. That's why we're offering that free growth and marketing audit. And remember, in just one powerful session, we'll uncover opportunities to drive real growth in your business. So if you're ready to make that impact, go visit profitbooster.biz. And don't forget to subscribe. You don't want to miss future shows. You can always catch Profit with a Plan on any of your favorite podcast players. And we're looking forward to more great profitable information on next week's show. So until then, make your plans and profit with them. Thank you so much, Steve.